Hello, my name is Alan O'Donoghue. I've been teaching computing, computer science, ICT and technology since the early 1990s, but now I lead a program of non-profit activities for teachers and schools under the title EXA Foundation. So I'm speaking to you today from Preston in the northwest of England, but I do work with schools around the UK, particularly England and Wales. So ordinarily today, I would have been in a school delivering a program of engaging activities to inspire audiences into computer science. But due to COVID, I've not actually physically been in a classroom since March. Like everyone else, the pandemic has caused me to review, change and adapt what I do. And I'd like to share with you how I think you can make use of some of these yourself. Now, I hope that what I'm going to suggest will inspire you in some way to consider trying something different so you can use to engage and inspire your classes. And if you'd like, then I might be able to help you. I'm happy to help where I can, but most of what I'm going to show you, you could do these on your own if you choose to. Now, one thing you need to know is I can't offer any guarantees that what I'm going to show you will boost exam results, but it should help you and your students see the computing curriculum in a different light. Now, one of the casualties of the lockdown in schools has been the cancellation of school trips. I mean, schools are struggling enough as it is to cover for colleagues who might be self-isolating. That's without trying to plan further ahead for what might be perceived as a non-essential part of school life. Schools I've been working with that organise computing trips every year without fail, they've told me they've cancelled their plans this year, which is a real shame. But maybe it doesn't need to be that way. If you're planning a school trip in any year, it adds massively to the workload with all the logistics, the risk assessments and the permissions. But it's always clear that students do enjoy visiting somewhere other than the same classroom that they've been in day after day. Now, I doubt there's going to be many school trips planned before the summer term, which is a real shame because it does provide opportunities for students to learn things in new, exciting ways and environments. And well, let me explain. So since the lockdown started, I've been bringing schools on virtual trips to various locations connected with computing and computer science. So we've done trips to Manchester, to London, to Bletchley, Bradford, and a mystery location in Wales that I'll reveal to you a little bit later on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some examples of how this looks and what it is that you might be looking for. So first example, we're in a building somewhere in the East Midlands. If I show you a little bit around, you might start to see some clues as to where we might be. Sometimes people say, oh, we're at Bletchley Park. Well, not exactly. We're at the National Museum of Computing, which is next door to Bletchley Park. And people who've ever visited this museum physically will know that there's loads and loads of amazing artifacts and objects and galleries there that all help tell the story of the development of computer out there. Hello, Ada. So the thing we're looking at here is a reconstruction of the bomb. That's one of the first breakthroughs in computing used to decipher and decode messages that were being used, secret messages during the Second World War. Now, this version of this tour that I'm using, you could use this yourself if you chose, if you wanted to plan your own one. Although I really would recommend, if you've got the budget and the time, that you actually contact the National Museum of Computing. So they, since the lockdown, they've been hosting virtual tours, and the big bonus, rather than getting me or somebody to help, is you're going to get actual experts who know exactly what it is that they're talking about. I mean, there's a useful thing that will come in handy in a computing lesson, and they will help build you. They've got the experience of running these sorts of things, so you could, in essence, sit back, and have one of these tours yourself. So lots of information about that on the National Museum of Computing website, tnmoc.org. Now we're also going to visit another location. This is just next door. So this is Bletchley Park. If you've seen the film, The Imitation Game, you might recognize there's a scene here. This is the old gate, the old entrance into Bletchley Park. And again, Bletchley Park themselves have got an online tour that you can use. You can book through their website. There, of course, is the iconic mansion where they had meals and social activities. You can go inside the huts as well. So I'm going to take you inside one of the huts very briefly. And while you're inside, you know, some schools I've visited don't look massively different from this. Obviously, the technology is a bit different, but there's lots of props there and things that you can find out more about. So we're traveling much further now. We're heading over to the west coast of the United States, and here we are at the Computing History Museum, Mountain View, California. It is vast, it is immense, and even if you were able to get there for one day, you would find that it's far more than most people can absorb or take in. So what I often do when I use this particular trip here, we will go and visit a specific gallery just to learn something about a particular element of computing. So this is the video games collection. So you'll see various iconic objects, artifacts, posters, and you might recognize, some of you, if you're old enough, some things from your own youth there. So brilliant resource to have access to that online. Let me show you what else have we got. Oh, I did mention we were going to go to a mystery location. So here we are. So here's your first clue. Who might study or work here? What might they be developing? So I would spend a bit more time if this was a school. Can you see any clues in the picture? Oh, what is that up there in the top right? Is that a flag from a certain nation that we should all be proud of, perhaps? Let's zoom out a little bit more. Oh, this maybe we're not on a planetary surface. Maybe this is actually a building somewhere in West Wales, and we can see a little bit of a clue to the location there on the wall. So this is known as the Pat Lab at the University of Aberystwyth, and students and staff working there, they're looking at things like computer vision, how you might travel around on all terrain. And when I've done a tour there with some groups of students, we've actually had interviews conducted with students and staff there, and we can find out about the opportunities within there. Now, what I've described so far are tours that you could run yourself, maybe with a little bit of help from me, or ones organized through some of those organizations. And I put together a guide. So if you have access to the Hello World magazine, so you can subscribe for free, they post you copies, you can access all of the previous editions. So you just need to find issue 14. And on page 88, you'll find there's an article I've written there all about how you can plan and organize your own virtual trip. So there's lots of tips, there's case studies. I've tried to get, you know, other teachers have contributed to this article as well. There's lots of links to things. So like the National Museum that I mentioned, also the National Cryptologic Museum, the NSA Museum, also in Maryland. And there's loads and loads of information and ideas and suggestions about not just making it happen on that day, but offline activities. So a group of students I was doing a tour with from South London, some of them went off to do different things, and one group, they made cupcakes that were decorated with an enigmatic message encrypted into the decorations. Now, there's something else I wanted to just pause and think about for a moment. Let me see, have I got something else just here? Trying to get, okay, so let me just go full screen on this before you figure out too much of what's going on. So there might be some clues. I just wanted to pause for a moment and stop looking at the screen maybe, and think of a film that you yourself have enjoyed, but has a strong link to computing or to computer science. Now think about that film. Is it like a really old black and white film? Possibly not. Is it something maybe from the 1980s? Something that resonates with you deeply? It could be something that has some special significance. Is it a film that you consider showing to a class? So these are the kind of questions that I've been asking. So we've been running a film club online called Exaflix. But before I tell you about that, let me warn you, there used to be a culture in schools. It may still exist in certain places where sometimes at the end of term or in exceptional sort of part closures or something, the teacher would stick on let's stick a DVD on. Yeah, when we don't know what to do. And in fact, I remember once covering a history teacher for a day, and I must have seen that beach scene from Saving Private Ryan 5 times in the same day. Still very, very powerful. And that school that I was teaching in, they actually got to a point where they banned teachers from showing entire DVDs in a lesson because they were saying that teachers were making abusing it. And, we all know that students like to be taught proper lessons right up until the very last lesson of the term. At least that's what they were telling us. So yeah, it can be a little bit sort of lazy thinking for teachers, especially when you're exhausted, to want to stick a DVD on. But I'm saying we shouldn't just give up on the notion of it. We should be encouraging our students to be reflective reviewers, not just passive consumers of media, and instead look for opportunities where we can, get our students to critically evaluate how computing and computer science is portrayed in films and on TV. And, if we think about it, our students will be exposed to many, many hours in front of a screen that are not necessarily going to be in our lesson. So maybe we're better off trying to empower them with the skills and knowledge to know which ones are worth watching and what things to watch out for. Now, here's the point I'm going to say. What about organizing a film festival for your students, a computing themed film festival? It could be a year-long thing you could do. It could be something for a week or over a holiday period or something. But try to get the students taking an active part, so it's not just something that you're subject to making us watch all these really old computing films. So you can get your students to help with you curate a list of films, dramas, and documentaries that are relevant to computer science or computing. And then you could come up with a list of criteria. You could rate and rank them. It could be about whether they're entertaining to watch, whether there's certain bits that are enjoyable, remarkable elements in the film. Do they have revelation? Like, oh, I never knew that, those kind of things. And if you were going to recommend that somebody would watch 5 minutes of a particular drama or a documentary, for a class, what would they be and what valuable lessons? Now, if you're doing this for the first time, you might just go for a general computing theme. But if you're spending a term looking at like artificial intelligence or the use of robotics, or even our use of social media, maybe it should be themed, your film festival, on that same theme. Now, as I mentioned, when lockdown started, my idea was to come up with a monthly film party that we call Exaflix. I'm just going to play an extract from a recent one where we were watching the film Video Games, and just listen to what Kerry says.
With that said, I think my favourite part of it is definitely the in the bedroom bit with all this tech set up and seeing all that tech as it was in the 1980s, and just and I can remember as a kid watching that, and they absolutely definitely influenced my GCSE choices, because I kind of was like, oh, I want to be that person who can do that kind of coding and do that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's my thought from that, really.
And I remember, Kerry, when I mentioned, oh, we're going to be watching War Games, you went, oh, I've totally got to be on the panel. And it surprised me a little bit because War Games was never one that I kind of read. So what's the really nice thing about these is we all share something in common. We've all watched this film at some point. We all have our own different opinions. And well, why would you not want to do that with a class, is I'm saying. So we have watched other films. On our list, what do we have? We also had Hidden Figures. We've done The Imitation Game and some other films that are less obvious. So we've got The Social Dilemma coming up in a few days' time. One of the things I've tried to do while we're doing this is, because not all of these films are widely accessible, so I've tried to select films that are. And if I pick Hidden Figures as an example, so on the EXA Foundation YouTube channel, what I've done is I've created a playlist so you can go and watch our discussion, but there's also clips that you're not breaking any copyright laws if you're watching these. They've been shared by the publisher of the film. And there's lots of documentaries. So there's loads and loads of things there, far more possibly than, well, there is more than you might want or need. And as I mentioned, Social Dilemma is coming up, and we've got, so if you'd like to join us for one of these discussions in the future, then find a way to get in touch. So there we are. So I talked about virtual tours that you could either organize yourself, a little bit of help from me, or talk to the experts and get them to do that for you. And the idea of a watch party. And the really nice thing about the watch party is it can be something that can be done outside of the lesson as homework, dare I say it. Thank you very much for listening to me and my ideas. My name's Alan. You can find me through EXA Foundation. You just go to the EXA.Foundation website or our Twitter, Facebook, and all of that. Thank you.